Hello and welcome to the Logic Box with me, Jones. Hope you're well and safe, and you're looking after each other. Coronavirus is still very much out there, so please do look after yourself. Now, we there's a lot we're gonna cover today. Earlier when I posted the flyer about the show today, um, Joyce is one of our main, should I say, um, one of the people that's always switched on and has always supported the Logic Box. So she left a message. She left a message on there, and she was saying, "Look, Ivory Coast, there's an election coming up. It would have been best for us to talk about it." And Joyce, I did send you a link. I sent you a link on there to let you know we have actually, spoken about it. And next week we'll talk about it again because it's getting closer to the elections in Ivory Coast. Now, before you do anything, I'd just like to let you know that we are streaming live on Facebook, also on YouTube. Okay, there's something fancy here that I want to put on there. Right, there we are. Oh, my guests are on there. Gosh, I didn't mean to have my guests on there, but here we go. Oh, as you can see on there, you can go onto our Facebook page. All right, the Logic Box with Jones. There's a lot of clips on there, past shows that we've done that we've uploaded on there. So do go on there and subscribe to our YouTube channel. All right, good. Now I'm back on. Now here's what's coming up on today's show. I'm sure you're aware of what's been going on, especially in Nigeria. So, in our main point of discussion, we're asking the disbandment of Nigerian police unit SARS. We're asking, is it a knee-jerk reaction or a good decision? I would like to hear your take on it. It has caught fire. Everyone is talking about it. Artists like P Diddy, even I think Kanye West. A lot of big celebrities are talking about it. What is this all about? You know, let's say your take on it. What do you think is happening? Is there something big about to happen in Nigeria? Or do you think this is just, knee-jerk reaction to the whole issue in Nigeria? Now, our guest today, joining us on the Logic Box, we have Priscilla Wigbo. She's a broadcaster and a political analyst. Also, Julius Baluto, a political analyst and editor of Informer East Africa. Both are with me today to look at some of the stories trending across the continent of Africa. Anyway, guys, do share. Make sure you share, get people watching. Let's have a conversation because we need to talk. We need to talk about issues affecting us. If it's not affecting you, it's probably affecting your brother, your neighbor, your sister, somebody closer to you. Okay. So make sure you share. So let's try this again. Hopefully, we can get all our guests on here. Let's see how it works. Okay, this is still on there, so I'll remove it. Here we go. And welcome, Priscilla and Julius. How you doing, guys?
Great, great.
Great. Thank you, Jones.
Yeah,
Pleasure
thank you.
to be here. I feel like we're back on Talk Africa. Hi, Julian.
Hello, hi guys.
It, it's been a while. It's been a while. So
Yeah,
just to remind our viewers, make sure you share. Okay, go onto our Facebook page if you're not on there, and also on YouTube, you can share the Logic Box. Okay, so let's get stuck in, Priscilla and
Mm.
Julius. No, actually, I haven't asked you guys. We're still in a pandemic. How you guys been coping?
Um, you know what, Jones? In this last few, I would say the last September, August, July, um, June-ish, they've been good for me. I kind of worked out.
hello,
Um,
hi guys.
I kind of worked out the whole, for myself, how to handle all of the death announcements and all the discomfort that was being spoken on a daily basis. I kind of worked out how to deal with it. In fact, what I did do was to go and check on the. It just one morning, I just asked myself the question: how many people would normally die in a day in the UK anyway?
Mhm.
And when I found out that in an average day, about 1,500 or so people would die, um, a day. And at the end of the week, we'll have about 10 or so thousand people that would have died. I thought from that day on, every time I heard the death announcements, I just thought, you guys are having a laugh. I'm not going to listen to this anymore. And I just started to, develop better coping mechanisms and just stopped allowing because, there were so many people couldn't go out, people were not driving. So those who would have died in the car accidents were not. Because we were all being locked down at home, those who would have naturally wanted to kill themselves, unless if they lived alone, but those who lived with others couldn't go out to do that. There was so many things that just sort of prevented. So I just kind of looked at that and I thought, you know what, it's actually not as bad,
Yeah.
not as bad. So don't let it affect you. So from that point onward, it just changed my mindset, and I just started. You know what? We're here. Well, the day is here. Let's just get on with it. What do I need to do today? How do I need to get this done? And it was just that really, and just going through the process of we have to wear a mask. Okay, I find mask uncomfortable. Okay, we've got these face shields. I prefer that. Let me get that instead. And just those things really. You don't want me to be out for too long? No problem. I can get things done and come back into my home. Yeah. So I'm good. I'm
That's
good.
good. That's good. And that's the thing, isn't it, Julius? We do adapt as human beings.
You know, in every episode of life, the key thing is we live and learn, and whether we like it or not, we just have to adapt to changes, you know.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, for me, coping with COVID 19 has just been the most strangest thing I've ever had to live with in my life. I mean, it's like you're watching an historical film and you're a character in it. So, because in the whole world, I mean, in all my life, I never thought one day we hear governments telling you stay at home. I mean, we wanted to stay at home when we were going to work, and we wish for that one day off, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
sometime holiday you want a longer one, and then
Yeah.
here you are, stay at home. If you never used to go to work before, they used to see you as the lowest of society, like you don't do
Mm,
anything, you stay at home. And now it comes a time whereby we all stay at home, it's all right, and under some particular order. So it's strange, pretty
Yeah.
strange. Now,
mm,
I'm a journalist covering everything, different stories from health, politics, everything, name it. But you know, the most scary story has been COVID-19 because
Mhm.
it's so scary. And journalists all the time, when the rest of the world is staying protected, we want to chase this COVID and tell you guys how it looks like and how you have to run away from it. But we are in it. We are in the danger zone. You know, that actually is there's a lot of journalists who have died because of COVID
mm,
19, having to
mm,
be on the front line covering these stories about COVID 19. So it's been a very difficult situation, and also the nature of the stories we are going to cover has been also very weird. I mean, I was covering Black Lives Matter. You know, there where when you go there, people are agitated. Sometimes you have to run, and it's hot in the sun and you want me to wear a mask? No, I'm going to suffocate. I don't know how to run with my mouth covered. It's
Well,
been very strange times, I have to
yeah.
say.
The,
Strange.
the, the
But
good thing is everyone is well, and hopefully families are well too. To you that's watching, make sure you do share, leave your comments on there. If you have any questions about the topics we're going to discuss, make sure you put them on there and I will read them out. So let's look at some of the stories making the headlines today, guys. Let's head over to Ghana. A few weeks ago, we actually touched upon this story. However, there's been some sort of development. So, a group calling itself the Dragon of Western Togoland Military Army, they've sent a note of caution to Energy Minister John Peter Amewu, Volta Regional Minister Iyawo Lester, and the MP for North Tongu, Mr. Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, that it will move to claim the motherland in the next 21 days. So they're saying that they will take hold, they will take control in 21 days. Now, just a quick, a brief history about these guys, the so-called, Togoland Military Army. So back in 1955, there was a plebiscite where they had a chance to join Togo or be part of Ghana.
Mm.
Now, when this was held, majority voted to be part of Ghana, but some people within that region voted overwhelmingly to leave Ghana. And I think this is what has festered over the years. And there's also tribalism element to this as well. A lot of the people feel marginalized. They feel as though they don't they feel like they don't get treated as Ghanaians, and so they're really pushing for this. Mind you, not a lot of people are in support of this anyway, but we've seen this happening in the past. And Priscilla, I'll come to you first because when this story first broke out, I actually covered this sometime last year. And as a Ghanaian, Ghana has always been a peaceful country. And when I heard this, I didn't give it that much of attention. I said, "Oh, leave these guys, man, nothing serious."
Mm.
Until I spoke to a journalist in that part of the region, then I realized that these guys actually do mean what they are talking about. And listening to one what do you call them? One expert, security expert, and he said, "Look, Ghana shouldn't take this lightly because this was how Boko Haram started. No one really thought they were a threat, and now look at what's become of them."
I think where we're at now, thanks, Jones. And before I answer that question, you were asking us, I just felt, how are you? How have you been?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good, Priscilla.
How are you coping with it all?
COVID, the same. We're good. Plowing away. We're good. Can't complain.
Yeah. So I mean, this situation is when I heard it, I was actually quite surprised because, like you said, Ghana is a very peaceful, one of the most peaceful countries on the west coast of Africa, actually. And so to hear that we've got a 4,000 strong army that are threatening to now claim what they call the motherland, and their grief, as usual, is that they've been mistreated, they've been slaves, they've been used as slaves. They've not had their fair share of, as it were, the Commonwealth of Ghana, and so they feel that it's high time that they took matters into their own hands, and so as not to be treated in the manner that they have. Which to when you hear it initially, you think, why does this keep happening? We keep hearing of this right across Africa, which is really very sad. But I think that the worst thing that has happened is that the government don't appear to have taken it as seriously. They don't seem to have stepped in, to try and say, how do we curb this? What do we do, to take their gripe seriously and to have the right kind of conversation. So they've sort of sat back. They're focusing on election. They're focusing on, they were very much focused on COVID and all of that. But now this matter is getting worse. And I think that the government honestly needs to step in because indeed this is to an extent what Nigerians saw of Boko Haram. And now it's out of control because it has not, what government needed to do, which we find so often across the continent again, is that most of the government just, they seem to think that they're immune or something, or they can just ignore it and it will go away, or, their method of control is one that does not understand negotiations or conversations with, before the issue sort of gets out of hand. And so as a result of that, the threat of 21 days cannot be ignored. And I'm hoping that the government of Ghana are going to do better than ignoring the situation, as it were.
Julius, a couple of weeks ago, the government did send army down that part of Ghana, and a few of them allegedly were arrested. Few young guys were arrested, including I think one or two females as well. And the story they gave was they were told to pay some money to be able to join the police force in that particular region. So we saw the army go in there, arresting a few guys, but then here we are. These guys are all in what it seems to be a police truck with ammunitions, and just going about their business like nothing is happening. And of course, we've seen these terrorist groups also in Kenya, of what they've done in Kenya. Of course, they're more well organized. But the point I'm trying to get at is here, like I asked Priscilla, is Ghana sitting on a time bomb, do you think?
Let me put it this way: when Boko Haram started, it started as a mend, and it just came across as some uh, Pan Africans, or Africans patriot, if there's anything like that, talking about being against the Western education. Oh, they were speaking English, although they were condemning the Western education. And it started just like that, and it escalated into whatever it is today. Well, when you look into East Africa, the kidnappings, it started with the kidnappings of tourists, and it was like, just okay, it's just one, and then there was more than one. And in the end, you realize it's a group of people with a particular form of an agenda. And in the end, you realize you're dealing with a group that is got number one, very well funded. Number two, militarily, they have training, and they have an agenda to take over some regions. Mm-hmm. So what I will say to Ghana, get your act right now. Don't waste time. It's kind of a dangerous game to be played on your own ground. Jonas and Priscilla, let me also bring a different context into our Africa. Our Africa today is awash with military bases from the Western countries. America alone has got all through AFRICOM, they are all over the continent. And now China wants military bases. The best conflict of interest happened in Djibouti, whereby you have the headquarters of AFRICOM in Africa, which is US, and then you have China also telling Djibouti, we also want some military base here. And US begins to complain, we didn't sign up for this, we pay for these things. And why do we have military bases in Africa? The coup that happened in Mali, the leader of that coup was trained in the US. And if you go back to the history of Africa, sometime back in Cote d'Ivoire, not Cote d'Ivoire, I think it was Equatorial Guinea, the son of the former Prime Minister of the UK, Mark Thatcher, he was prosecuted and sentenced successfully for supporting a coup in Equatorial Guinea. So our Africa, we have all these military bases. They are training soldiers, some groups of whatever. And they are the ones, like in Libya, supporting regime change. So therefore, when you see these guys start trying to create some havoc and or whatever, you want to ask yourself as Ghanaians, where are they getting their funding? Where do they get money to buy vans or police or even weapons? Who is training them? What is a bigger agenda? It's very important to act quick.
It's very, very. It's a good question, Julius, because actually, a friend of mine, okay, he's actually from Sierra Leone, but he's traced his heritage, and his heritage goes back to the people, of the Volta region, and he was actually propagating what the people of Togoland are claiming. And I had to question him on it. And I said, listen, you don't know the dynamics in Ghana. You've never stepped foot in Ghana before. You don't really know what's happening. And I came under a lot of attack on social media, which then, of course, allegedly, I'm just saying allegedly, I think, it must be people from outside that's actually sponsoring these people, the act that they, whatever it is that they're doing. And let me actually remove the alleged, because speaking to the journalist in that part of the region, she did say there were a lot of people within the diaspora that were actually sponsoring them.
Yeah, we have to be careful, because
within the diaspora,
we realize, even in the case of go on, Priscilla, go on.
No, I was just asking, when we say people within the diaspora, are we saying Africans in the diaspora
Well,
or?
she didn't quantify it. However, the fact that I came under a lot of attacks on social media, these guys were saying, well, you claim we're not Ghanaians, and then I was being attacked for being a can, oh, he's a can. What else do you expect of them? They say we're not Ghanaians, so we're gonna leave Ghana. And I had to, when I came off social media, I was thinking about this. Should I give them air? Should I take what they're saying seriously? But then when you see what these guys are trying to do, there is a bigger agenda. One can only assume. So, anyway, we're running out of time. We need to create enough time so we talk about our main point of discussion. Let's move across to um, Rwanda. Rwanda. So, Rwanda has approved the cultivation and export of cannabis, even as the use of the stimulant for medical recreational purpose remains illegal in the country. The government is targeting to grow its export earnings from the global cannabis market, valued at $345 billion, according to analyst New Frontier data. The decision has caused confusion, with some warning it could be detrimental to the youth if tough controls are not enforced. Julius, I mean, when it comes to marijuana, especially as Africans, this is something that a lot of people frown upon, and even in the US, where a lot of the states now it has been legalized. Prior to that, you can see the amount of people that have been sent to prison, and we've also seen the impact it can have on the youth. But if it's properly regulated, surely it can only be good for the country. Oh,
Well, the thing is, there's something I always remember every day. It was a rainy day. I was walking on the street, and then I put on my hoodie to cover my head. And it didn't take long in London street for a young man coming shouting to me, "Oh, mate, would you like some weed? It's only cheap." And I'm like, "Do you sell weed inside church or mosque? Look again." So, and do you know, even it's just the way I grew up, right? It's the way I saw cannabis destroy lives of young people. It's the way I saw the governments of in African setting arresting and sending people to jail for a long time because of selling it. And
mhm,
therefore, that's a contradiction that comes when we want to illustrate what's happening in Rwanda. As we stand right now,
mhm,
it's not legal. It's not legal. If you can be arrested for selling drugs and you're going to be banged up for a very long time, then the same government, without changing law yet, they say they want to do that, and they haven't changed the law to allow the new dynamics, to allow the new dispensation of what they want to do it for export. So it's very interesting situation and development in Rwanda, because if you can be arrested on the street for selling, weed or cannabis, how can the government now begin to be the good ones and export it? So there are issues there. I think that Rwanda will have to start by changing the law to allow the new dispensation. And then when they are in the new dispensation, they will begin to educate their people and tell them, yeah, so don't be worried when you see us as government, planting this illegal plant and making money out of it. Otherwise, you may end up looking like the bad drug dealer.
mhm. Priscilla.
It's interesting, isn't it, that cannabis is um, I'm struggling for words for it. We saw that there was a global conversation, a couple of years ago,
Mhm,
about the fact that the use of cannabis, and whether, especially here in the UK, if we should legalize it or not. We know that over on the European continent, in some places like the Netherlands, they're a lot more. The use of cannabis over there, they're a lot more easier. to more permission are granted for use over there. So, but then the world suddenly we're having a conversation about the fact that the drug itself has so many great benefits, and that we need to look more at those benefits. And the production of cannabis at the moment stands at something like 345 billion.
Yeah.
That's the market for it. So for such a huge market, I think it's great that Rwanda is actually going into it. What you would find is that I think there's about if you look at the top 10 countries that are producing cannabis, it's amazing. Even Nigeria is there. Most of these countries, cannabis is actually illegal in those countries, but then they're able to produce it. So as much as I hear what the Rwandans are saying and the concerns that they're raising, it's right to raise those concerns, because then it brings it to the attention of the government, and then let the government begin to look at how do we ensure stringent production lines that protects our people, and we don't suddenly open up our markets to drugs and more drug barons and so on. So it's good that the concern is being raised, and it's for the Rwandan government to put in the right measures to ensure that it's not a case of free for all. We're producing cannabis so everybody can produce in their garden or in their houses, but
Exactly.
but it still remains an illegal act for the people, but then it's not illegal for the government. And as such, those who work for the government should not take advantage. And if you do, you should face real time in prison. There should be a consequence that deters people
Priscilla,
wanting. Yes, sir.
don't you think that if you are government official, it will be legal for you to deal with it?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm a government official. I would not want to be producing cannabis myself. But if we're producing it for country, and the country is benefiting, and if we're going to use that money, so for the people to benefit, because it is a viable trade around the world. Canada is actually working with is it Lesotho to produce. They've got a joint venture, I believe, to produce. So it's very lucrative. So why not? If other people are going to do it, and let's not look at just the negative. There are so many positives from what they tell us. I'm not an expert, so I'm only going by what the experts have said with regards to regards to the benefits and the ingredients and how we can live longer and how we can live healthier.
I think it was Michael Gove that said we're sick and tired of experts. But quick one.
Just a quick one, John.
Yes.
Yeah, just a quick one. In the UK where we are, right? Cannabis became illegal for the very first time in 1928. And this one was under what they call Dangerous Drugs Act of 1920. But then again, Home Office records are showing us that the usage of cannabis has been increasing in this country. And then from the very first time, from the 1st of November 2018, is when medical cannabis was legally used in the UK, and they carry on to do that, and doctors are very worried of prescribing it.
And I think the company that was actually producing it was Theresa May's husband's company.
Apparently, yes.
Yes.
Apparently,
yeah. But guys, quickly, because I know we're really running out of time. I have Alex Bediakun here. Alex Bediakun wants to talk about the Togoland issue. Alex Bediakun is from the Volta region. So, Alex Bediakun, thank you very much for taking time out to talk to us. What would you like to say?
Yeah, thank you. My regard to Priscilla and what's the other? Julius, yes.
Yeah.
I think you people have talked about the Togoland, the secessionist movement.
Yeah.
You see, what I want to say here today is that you see, the Volta region has been part and parcel of Republic of Ghana for a long time.
Yes.
And those who have followed history and they study history, even not all the people who want to live and become independent state of Ghana, not all the states or the regions or the various areas of Volta region were part of that Transvolta Togoland.
Yeah.
Actually, most of them were part of Ghana before. The Gokos were part of the Goko before it became Ghana. But let me move quick to say that there is even less than 0.5% of people in the entire Volta region that supported this movement.
Yeah.
This movement has been in the known for a long time. In the 90s, they were studying, called themselves studying root, what have you. But what I want to say today is that, you see, we have witnessed as a country the government of the first republic, the first president of the republic, that is Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, then the successive military government, then we entered the fourth republic led by Jerry John Rawlings, then Kufuor, then Atamis, President Mahama, then now Nana Akufo-Addo. Apart from Nana Akufo-Addo's government and all other government that we have witnessed in the Fourth Republic, Ghana and the people have lived in peace. And there were no mention of this movement. But you see, sometimes we can choose to be diplomatic about these issues and not put things in their right corner or perspective. We have not experienced this kind of things. So every government has a certain characteristics that will determine the direction in which the nation or the country goes.
Alex, are you blaming the Akufo-Addo's government for this?
No, I don't want to make that conclusion because that would be like a conjecture of
it sounds like that's the trajectory
saying something
you're going.
Without evidence. You see, but sometimes we can make certain inferences. The pronouncement of this government, even before it became a government.
Right.
Okay. And the things that we have seen the leader of this government that did in the past, and the warnings and things that people have given, that Ghanaians, by our nature, I would say we are just like vultures. When it is raining, then you say, oh, tomorrow, when the rain stop, I'll build a house. As soon as the rain stop, we've forgotten. We fail to deal with the issues when it started. So a government came and realized that, look, there are movements within Volta region. And Volta region is noted, just like other regions, is noted to support the opposition National Democratic Congress. Pronouncement of ministers of state tell us that, look, there is a high suspicion that this government has a hand in this in secession movement, and that they are recruiting. I can tell you on authority that there is nobody we can
on what basis, because these are strong allegations here.
I'm coming to tell you.
I know for time reasons, if you can just touch upon that for me, that would really be helpful.
Is that this movement, the people who we know that are agitating for independence from Ghana, we know them. We know them very well. And we have not seen any of them engage in even a military training. We are aware that some international bodies, this like we see people are interested in the division or partitioning of countries in order to gain independence for their own interests. But if an authority of our own state has not given that, not giving it out, there is no way it will succeed because it play into their own agenda.
Okay.
So for me, I think that we should put this in perspective.
All right, look, Alex, I think you have a lot to say, Alex, and
yes,
you know,
what I want
let's
Yes.
there's not enough time.
Regarding
So what I would say,
yeah,
Alex,
yes.
is next week I'll give you the opportunity so you can express yourself a bit more on this particular issue, Alex. It's just that we need to move on. But thank you very much for coming on. I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. That was Alex there, Alex Bediakon. And came on, he wanted to speak about the Western Togoland issue. I promise you, Alex, next week, I promise you, we'll have you to come on. Guys, we're really running out of time here. So I don't know how we're going to do this. We're going to try and look at these stories together. So we'll start with a Congolese man activist who snatched an African artifact from a French museum to protest the looting of art during colonial times, received a 1,000 euro fine for the theft from a Paris, in Paris, according to the court. And, I want Priscilla to talk about this. No, actually, Julius to talk about this. And then Priscilla, I want you to talk about Donald Trump. The story says, pray for Trump because when God places any of his children in position, hell sometimes will do everything to destroy that individual, according to the Nigerian pastor Chris Oyakhilome. Priscilla, you help me if I pronounce his name right or wrong. He also warned that critics of the Republican president who is seeking re-election in November dislike his supporters. And I quote him. He says, they are angry at Trump for supporting Christians. You better know it. So the real ones that they hate are you who are Christians, said the pastor, whose broadcasts are popular around the world, including in the US. So, Priscilla, you can go first on this.
Oh God, Jones, why? Should I let Julius go first?
Mine will be a very quick one, yeah? Mine will be a very quick one. What Chris Oyalome doesn't know is that in the US as well, we have also a pastor who came up completely discrediting the idea that Trump comes as is a pro-Christian. Actually, he was talking about Trump uses Christians to solicit for votes. Simply put, it's nothing to mean he believes in God. He's a Christian per se, practicing Christian. It's just a voting block of either evangelicals in the US or Black Christians as well. So it's all about votes. It doesn't go beyond that. From explanation from one of the US leading Black pastors. So, but Chris, what does he know? It caused controversy the other time. He was telling us that Corona was caused by 5G, the rolling out of 5G technology. So I don't know. We need to listen more to God than the ways of the world and the digital.
I'm still waiting for Trump to quote his favorite scripture. Priscilla.
Yeah.
For me, Trump from the get-go, as I've always said, number one, Trump had no business becoming president. Trump was running against probably the best candidate that the US has ever had for presidential election, and that was Hillary Clinton. Not because she's a woman, but because she has lived through the White House with a president. She's been in the political system for some time. She has some degree of experience and understanding and so on and so forth. So running the country would have been semi-easier for her, a lot more easier for her, I think, than, Trump, who was a businessman, for instance. But he had no business being in the race, let alone winning, but he did.
Yeah.
I mean, that totally knocked me. Here we are again, the second time around. This right now, the whole world is up in arms about Trump and the fact that he's not fit, he shouldn't be, and so on and so forth. And as a result of that, I think that we're really missing the real issues here as to, what has he achieved? I don't hear anybody asking the questions of what he's done in his time in office. All I hear, Trump himself doesn't help himself to be elected in the first instance. He started demarketing himself the day he arrived. And so, there's been so much focus on his ability to demarket himself that we've lost sight at really scrutinizing these candidates and what they stand for, what they're about, and what they're likely to deliver or not deliver. As per the whole evangelical situation, for me personally, I look at the, like I've said, Trump has been for me a mystery. You know, and so because I see his whole, you know, arrival and he's becoming president and continues to hold that office as a mystery, it just baffles me. We give him more attention than he needs. For those who believe that he should, you know, be president, I can't argue with their belief. And you know, I've been asked the question, do I think he's of God? And I often have to remind those who ask me, God creates good and bad. So we often think that just because he doesn't come across as a good person, he can't possibly be of God. But for all we know, God probably has him there at the moment just to create this confusion that we've got going. You know,
Yeah.
he might be up there in heaven just having a laugh. But hey, I don't know. And so if you ask me whether or not I would vote for him, the human Priscilla will say hell no. But then, you know, the spiritual Priscilla might question that. I don't know. So I look at the whole situation and I think, and I say in this, people should not lose sight of what the real issues are. We're getting carried away. We're conflating issues. We're not looking at capacity, capability, effectiveness, all of those things. We need to be looking at that. And as per whether or not he is of God, he's not of God, that's a personal belief for every person. It's a choice for everybody, and you go according to, you know, what you believe or what you feel. So for some people, he is of God. He should be there right now. We should be voting for him. For others, God forbid, he can't possibly be. But there's one thing I do know, though, and which is that the Bible does say that we should pray for our leaders so that we can have peace. So for that, I will do, whether I like him or I don't like him. That's an obligation that I have, and that's an obligation that I must.
Can
I
Yeah.
will.
And
Just a quick
quickly,
one. Just
go
a
on,
quick one.
Genius. Yes.
Priscilla, take cue from Kanye West. You see, he was his best friend, but Kanye West now is a presidential candidate. He launched his manifesto last week, and he's talking about making America a real Christian country. So if if his friend was a real Christian, I mean, what it is that he could just not join forces with Trump and say, I'll just campaign for you. But he didn't do that. He's now a legitimate vying candidate, a presidential candidate. Of course, you wouldn't hear about him because he's not Democrat or Republican.
No, I've heard that Kanye West wants to be Mr. President, but I think that there's a small matter that Kanye West has to deal with first and foremost, and that is a small matter of his mental, capacity at the moment. I think it's a serious issue, and I really hope that he can get help for that. As to whether or not Kanye West agrees or doesn't agree with Mr. President, Kanye West doesn't. I've never met him, but for what I read and see, he doesn't seem to have much. He doesn't get on with a lot of people, from what we see. So, but I'm sure privately he's probably a great human being. I don't know, but for what is projected, it doesn't come across well. Neither does Trump. Trump doesn't come across well for anybody. But there's one thing I will say about Trump, which I have observed, and that is that Trump has 5 children or so, or four kids from different marriages. And every one of his children are with him. And he looks after his children. He seems to have a real concern. So the women can come and go, but you leave my child. And I actually like that about him, that he's a father who actually thinks of his children, and they're constantly there with him. They are, I don't agree with the fact that the nepotism that he's using at the moment to give them all jobs within the White House, because that's obviously wrong. I don't agree with that, but I do like the fact that he's a family man, and he does, he has concern for his children. Maybe that's a good quality that maybe transcends into other areas, but we will never know, because I will never know, rather, because all that Trump projects is just to get on everybody's nerves every day. Just say, go on Twitter when he shouldn't, say things he has no business saying, rather than focusing on the job at hand, which is really, it's terrible, because there must be some other good to him. There's bound to be. Every human being has a good and a bad side. So For me, it's to pray for him as to whether or not he is.
Yeah, let's pray for Trump. Let's pray for Trump. Let's move on quickly, Julius, on this activist, the Congolese activist, who
Yeah.
went to the French Museum to take artifacts belonging to to the people of Africa.
Well, actually, this question is very valid, Jonas. In January, newspaper Informa East Africa, we hosted a very important summit, kind of a conference, and we were talking about reparation, we were talking about returning of artifacts, we were talking about decolonization, and those subjects were so emotive. They brought so many people in the 2 days of the event. Every session was full up and all that. But what has been born out of that event, there's a big group, a very well organized group in the UK, fronting the returning of artifacts from Africa. And at the same time, also, we saw, I think it was last year, the president of France, Macron, talking about all the stolen artifacts from Africa. It's about time that they were returned. So therefore, although this guy was sentenced and all that, um, maybe he just went physical. That's the easiest way we say. Yes, you can see this and you say it's from Congo, and you just don't snatch. You just, there's a formality you have to follow. Otherwise, you get arrested. But I just want to tell you that in London alone, there's about 7 kilometers of museums.
Mhm.
And when you walk along it, you see all this from Africa, the other one from Africa, and all that. And you know, it's not just London. A lot of museums in the Western capitals, they have things that initially were stolen from Africa. So, you know, I just want to point out one thing which is very important also. It helps us learn. You see, these things stolen, let's say, for example, you went to Ghana and you stole the golden stool. Do you know the history of the golden stool? Do you know how important it was to the Ghanaian people? Because symbolism of that golden stool goes so much deep in terms of the heritage of the country. And therefore, the moment you snatched a stool, but what you have stolen is not the stool, it's what the stool represents. And that is, there's no money that can buy that. And the stories are being told about, you know, kind body parts of African leaders formerly in some museum in London and all that. And you ask yourself, of what use do you have to that? Just send them back. Let those guys who have no heads be reconnected and be given a decent burial. You know, there are things that should not be happening in the Western capitals. Things that were especially cultural artifacts stolen from African countries, they ought to be returned because most of them are still part and parcel of the heritage of those African countries. And they will never have a chance to get back what was stolen because golden stool in Ghana, we know Queen Yaha Ashendiwa is still subject of let's have this tool back. And you know, it's very important to get this given back because, but what will the West want really to give them? There's another side of the argument. They're like, wow, we generate a lot of revenue through these museums. If we give back what we got from Africa,
Absolutely.
our museums will be empty. It will not attract tourists again. I just want also to talk to African governments. They need to clamor for this. And when you get them back, it's better for someone to go in a museum in Ghana and see the golden stool, read the history of that golden stool, talk about Yaha Sendua, you know, go to either, I mean, in Kenya, in any other country, in Uganda, anything that belongs to these countries, they need to just give it back.
Okay. Let's move on now to our main point of discussion. See that Moses has sent a couple of messages. Do make sure you share, guys. Get on. Let's hear your take on what we've been discussing here. Now let's move on to our main point of discussion. Now, protests started following the alleged killing of a young man by officers from the SARS unit at the beginning of October. Okay. Now, the SARS are a special police unit in Nigeria, which was formed to deal with armed robberies in Nigeria. They're still part of the police. Okay, now I remember myself. This was, I think, in particular last year. I kept seeing footage of people saying that, people filming what appeared to be policemen in uniform with guns, and they keep saying SARS, 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 SARS. I didn't really understand what it was, so I dug deep into it to really understand what is happening. Of course, I spoke to some of my Nigerian friends. So when the young man was killed in October, people began to protest. Okay, they were calling for the unit to be disbanded. Now, the police did close it down and announced a new unit called the Special Weapons Tactics. The Special Weapons Tactics team. But protesters rejected the announcement, as many see the changes as not enough to reform the police. Okay, now you've seen what's been going on. A lot of I'm trying to read a few messages here. A lot of celebrities have been posting it on their social media platforms and SARS now. We've seen Davido talking about it. He's actually out there with the protesters. We've seen Wizkid talking about it. I've seen P. Diddy tweeting about it. Kanye West as well also tweeting about it. And everyone is talking about it. There's a movement from the youth saying that they've had enough of what is happening. So the question we're asking is simple. The disbandment of Nigerian police unit SARS, is it a knee-jerk reaction or a good decision? Priscilla.
The disbandment of SARS, it was absolutely a knee-jerk reaction. It was what the Nigerian government are good at doing, which is to think that they can try and deal with the issue. Let me try and quote this former senator well. The former senator said that the Nigerian government will deal with some issues with insecticides and he will use deodorant for Boko Haram, for instance. So effective. So they're not. They thought if we just tell them that we've disbanded, they would go home. But you see, as you rightly said, Jones, this whole SARS situation has been brewing for so many years. The Nigerian youth have been, hashtagging and trending end SARS in 2019, 2018, 2017, 2016. SARS was banned in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. Every year they're banning SARS. They're doing nothing. So the people what is so amazing about what we're seeing now, I personally don't think that this whole idea, this whole protest is just about banning SARS. I think it's a beginning of the people taking back their sovereignty. And I believe that it is the first steps in a long journey, that journey of, if you like, cleansing the nation, changing the way that they're being governed. I've always said that, until the Nigerian people tell their government how they want to be governed, all of the things that we see happen in Nigeria will continue. The corruption will continue. Somebody said the other day, corruption is the currency, is the legal tender. It's not the naira, it's corruption. The corruption that we see, the brutality that we see, the lack of protection of human rights being taken seriously, for instance, all of those things, until the people rise up and say, we have had enough, the change will never come. And this is where we're at. So the government thought we would just tell them, we've disbanded SARS, and then they would go home. But then they disbanded SARS, and then they brought forward the squad that you spoke about. That squad was already in existence. The special weapons and tactics squad, that was a SWAT, that was already in existence. They just now decided to bring that forward. But here's the problem. is not enough to end SARS or to end SWATs, because the problem that we have is endemic. These police officers are being paid something like 50,000 naira. 50,000 naira in today's Nigeria is what, 20 20 or so, no, not 20 pounds. It's about 600 to one pound now at the moment. Today, I was told. So when we do the maths, about 100 pounds, I think. Well, anyway, so imagine 50,000 naira, right? It's 100 pounds is what somebody's earning a month. You've got family to feed. A bag of rice is costing like 30 odd thousand. So if you have family, you've got children to look after, and these salaries don't always come regularly. It's bad enough that they're small, but they don't come on time. Now, these same people are expected to be out there in the sun and to be protecting the nation, and this is what they earn. You see, in order for them to be able to survive, they feel they need to be able to, they get involved in all of these, activities. Mm-hmm. They've, gotten to the point now where they've become the armed robbers, because they are holding guns on a daily basis and literally holding them to the heads, and they're picking on the younger ones because they're picking on the younger ones more. They pick on you if you're driving a good car. They pick on you if you have dreadlocks. They pick on you if you're carrying a decent phone. They pick on you if you're carrying 2 or 3 phones. They pick on you if they just, they think you look the part. They would just simply pick on you. There have been reports of people being taken to cash points and being made to withdraw monies and give to these guys, and they would just throw them in cells. It's bad enough they do that, but they go the extra mile of killing. And I think what was worse about the young man you mentioned that was killed was that the officer actually said, "I have killed your son, and nobody's going to do anything about it." How do you tell parents that? And that was the trigger point that set everybody out on the street. And what is interesting is that these young people have come out on the street. Government, usually what happens is that you have the National Labour Congress, mm-hmm. and you have unions. When you have a strike in Nigeria, they would normally be the ones that would say, okay, we're going on strike, so they'll be out on the street protesting. And usually the government will call in their leaders. After a conversation, the strike will be called off. So those ones will literally threaten a protest, and then they'll have a conversation. Oh, no, we're not protesting tomorrow. I'll leave the rest to you to imagine what took place there. But in this situation with these young people, there is no clear leader. And they started trending the hashtag. You've got Jack, who owns Twitter, tweeting. You've got Ice Cube tweeting. You've got the celebrities that you mentioned. Yeah. Everybody is just sending it out. And these young people on Twitter especially, you would just see somebody says, we're going out to protest in this state. We have 36 states in Nigeria. This is happening mostly down south. Yeah. People up north tend not to get involved in all of these things. So there's something else I mentioned in a moment. So this is happening down south, and these young people are just saying, we're going out to protest in the states, and they're doing it. Because there's no clear leadership, it's made it difficult for the government to be able to do the usual, have a meeting, have a conversation, and then it's over.
When you say clear leadership, as in somebody who is at the forefront of the protest?
There isn't one person solely at the forefront. Yeah. In every state, they're springing up. Yeah, they're springing up everywhere. What is their demand? We want to end SARS. We want you to pay the police officers better. We want you to let the police officers who have killed, let them pay for their crime. We want this, we want that, which is great. But I think that they need to have better ask beyond that, because yes, pay the police officers better, but then we can't also have our politicians who are earning more than everybody else on the face of the planet, earning more money than other politicians around the world. They get money for newspapers. They get money for a new house when the year starts. Every year they get given money for furniture. They get given money for food. They get given money for those who are serving them. They have bought new cars, or they're giving money for cars. I mean, it's ridiculous. And this huge amount of money, if we were to reduce it, we may be able to pay the police officers better. So let me explain. The police officers are one group of people that are working, that are employed by the government, if you like. We've got doctors that are going through the same thing. So you go to the hospital, most doctors will rather set up their private clinic. When you come to the hospital, they'll say there's no bed, there's no this, but then they'll have availability in their private clinic. So this is how the corruption is happening. You've got the same thing with teachers. So teachers, students are not passing exams. Parents are paying for their kids to just, run through, so that, they don't have to, the strain of, and this is for some, not for every, but it's happening. So you've got that whole situation happening in the system. So when you put these groups of people, these areas of society together, and this is happening, and it's happening amongst the police, the ordinary man on the street is being extorted every single day, in every breath of life. He or she is doing the same, is having to do the same thing to survive. It can no longer continue. So it's a bigger picture than just ending SARS. Ending SARS is just, for me, the catapulting, the springboard to making things better in that country. There's just so much to it.
Before Julius comes in, just one more, Priscilla. So I just wanted to know, since SARS was formed, how effective have they been?
I think initially they were very effective. Initially, they weren't visible on the streets like we're seeing today. They actually just went ahead, because the SARS is the special anti-robbery squad.
Yeah.
So they would go out for serious robbery. They will investigate it and catch the culprits and deal with them. But what we have today, for instance, is that you will see SARS members dressed in their uniforms, but they're providing security also for politicians. They're providing security for those that can pay. And so they're taking away from the jobs of investigating robberies, because they're not being well paid. They're out on the streets. They will set up roadblocks on roads so that they can extort. So they're not as effective, because they're not even investigating some of the crimes. To make matters worse, some of the crimes that are happening, you will find that some members of SARS are behind it. So, they've turned into the criminals. They're setting up the situation. So it's a really vile circle, to be honest with you. And it does need attention. It needs to be resolved. And, if this is what it means, then congratulations. I haven't said that. I am so proud. I am so proud and so happy to see that the Nigerian youth are finally taking destiny into their hands and saying, no, we're not doing this. We want to see these changes effected. It's not the one you're going to tell us, and then we all go home and sleep. By the time we wake up tomorrow, you're doing what you like. No, we're here until we see it effected. And I must applaud all of them for that. And I thank the world for supporting them and also cheering them on.
And Julius, there's one politician, I'm actually still in his quote. He said, when the people rise up, the government has to listen.
Well, that's very true, because as I think Priscilla explained, these protests were not in one place. It was in Abuja and also different other cities, and also in London, precisely last Sunday, right? And
everywhere.
When you look at, the last time I was in Nigeria, Lagos, the last general election, and I walked on the street and I saw these flyers of all of them old people, no young person, and I challenged one young Nigerian. I'm like, why is it the case that you saw all the time old people who would fight for these posts? It was a question of money, having the money. You have to have the money so that you can vie for any elective post. And also, there's that hierarchical, paternalistic kind of setup that doesn't allow younger people that much. But so for me, I'm like, it's good to see young people now waking up saying, it's not status quo as usual. Things have to change. And yes, to respond into also make my contribution of these issues about SARS, what caught my attention was what the police officer was saying. For example, the word SWAT, Special Weapons and Tactics team, it makes them sound like they're just supposed to deal with weapons, right? Come
Yeah.
up with new strategies, new tactics. Connotation of that word, that's what it comes across. But therefore, if those people are going to deal with people like the police do, you need to ask yourself, are they trained enough? What also caught my attention in the same was what the chief, police chief, Mr. Hadam, was talking about. He's saying that every SWAT member, they will be subjected to psychological, they will undergo a psychological and medical examination before further training and deployment. So I had a very influential man once in Africa say, most of the time when it comes to African politics, the forest is always the same. Sorry, the forest is always different, but the monkeys are still the same and will never change. And when you see you're used to a particular way of doing work, how much training will you get to change? Why don't you just bring someone with a different mindset? Change fails to happen in Africa because there is no mentoring, there is no continuity. What happens is that you see those who are best in what they do, especially in leadership, they just disappear in some system which is always corrupt and all that. They accept that as not the norm and they never change. We have powerful minds who have contributed globally, but take them back to African setting. And the words they begin to talk about, you're like, have you ever even gone to school? And what is it that happens in these places, in these systems, whereby you find change can't happen? The other thing is impunity. When you give the people like the SARS power, like we saw 10 people who are killed, of course, human rights activists challenge that. And then the National Human Rights Commission of Nigeria is also talking about, as a gesture of goodwill, releasing all those protesters who were arrested. So you want to ask yourself, how far can this go? I don't think Nigerians want a continuity of SARS. And also, I have a problem with that name. Before coronavirus came, we were talking about SARS. Why did they choose that name? It's not a good. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys.
But then,
I'm sorry.
I was having
I'm sorry,
a
guys.
conversation. No, that's fine. That's fine. I was having a conversation with our friend Idris the other day about this particular issue, and the process of recruitment came up, and I will use Ghana as an example. And I think this was back in 2000 and either 2012 or 2016, where a member of one particular party, there was a tape which was leaked where he was saying to the party's foot soldiers that if we're able to come into power, the job for you guys is push you into, security, the police force, and and to the army. So then one have to also question, when it comes to recruitment. And secondly, guys, I was also talking about the psychological impact on the police. Because let's face it, they were formed to deal with these armed robbers. And sometimes these armed robbers have better ammunition than the police. Already, to be a policeman is not an easy job. And you could come up against an armed robber, whatever, there could be shootouts, and the psychological effect that will have on the policemen, to the point where any situations that may arise where you need to be calm and control the situation, you end up being trigger happy. And I think sometimes we don't put enough emphasis on what the police go through, and if there are ways in which they can be helped on that side as well.
I think the thing is, when you recruit police officers, and in terms of the economy of the country, you want to ask yourself, how many layers of this service should there be? Because instead of having so many layers doing the same thing, okay, the ultimate work of SWAT or SARS is to prevent crime. Crime comes in different ways, right? A typical police officer has been trained to fight crime. So instead of having all these layers and layers of service, same service, why not have just one service? Number one, remunerate these officers. Number two, train them and retrain them to be good at what they do. And then you find out that you will never have to have so many layers doing the same. Let me tell you something. Conflict happens. We saw it, in Kenya during the Westgate attack. Because of having different layers doing different things, then the initial response is by police. Then the second layer will come and they begin to be like, we are better than you, get away. Instead of having a united, coordinated, one force, you find even layers fighting each other. You may have typical, we're talking about, SARS in Nigeria or SWAT. Imagine crime happened and you see SWAT response. But your typical police officer will be also on the ground. And there's always that power struggle, like, is SARS or SWAT, is it better than typical Nigerian police officer? And therefore, that conflict is kind of covered. It's not obvious in some situations, but it's always there. Talk about US. I do see when the federal police does respond. And I see how they behave when they see CIA or FBI. And also these guys also, they're like coming like in a way that they intimidate them. They're like, we are a bit senior than yourselves. And we have to think as African, what is good for our economy, Western affluent nations can afford the luxury of even having 20 layers of the service, same service. But Africa, are we that rich? Do we have enough resources to entertain layers and layers of the same service? It's just a question to ponder.
And Priscilla, if we can, I just want you to touch on earlier when I did ask if they've been effective. Right now, this protest, obviously we've had the Black Lives Matter, and this in a way is similar because it's against police brutality. So what is next now?
Well, I think what is really interesting about this protest is that the government sort of sat back initially and thought, oh, don't worry, they'll be run out of steam very soon and they'll go home. Because usually when protest happens in Nigeria, it tends to be organized by those who obviously they want something. And it tends to be the money bags that will organize these protests. So that's, to make the government of the day look bad. But what has happened here is people have risen up. And I mean, it's amazing how united they are. So there has been, it has been effective, if not for anything, it's been effective in drumming into the Nigerian youth that we need to be one and we need to step out and it is up to us. So that's number one that I think that they've achieved. And what has been so beautiful to see is that so they've raised money. As at the last time I checked, it was something like 60 million naira. They've raised money amongst themselves. And what are they using this money for? For anybody that gets arrested, there's a team of lawyers that are, going to bail them in court. So they're paying those lawyers. If you get injured, you need to get to a hospital. These monies are there to help you. I even saw the other day somebody put on Twitter, if your car is broken down or something, there's a garage where you can bring your car to. and then there was a threat that they're gonna switch off the internet. So they've quickly grouped themselves and said, hey, if they're gonna switch off the internet, you can use the VPN. This is how you can go. But they've put the full instructions of what you need to do to use your phone so that we can stay in communication. People start swapping numbers. And on a daily basis, you've got people that are paying for food, so they're also utilizing this money to buy food. And it's you know, so they're so united that even when you've got those who any negative elements, they're not tolerating it. There was a group apparently that was paid to go and disrupt the protest. Those groups spoke about the fact that they lost one person. So they were literally beaten, arrested, handed over to the police, and you know, and they're not tolerating, they're also not allowing anybody to come and hijack their protest. So if you're coming there, you know, obviously we have activists in the country, and all those activists that would come along with their usual, you know, I think the most recent one, Revolution Now, for instance, they're like, no, 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 please, this is not about revolution now. We're here to end that. Please, can you just, no, 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 not here. Yeah. And you've got the political jobbers as well. And they're just saying to them, don't come. Please, this is not about this today. We're here to end SARS. So I think there is that unity, that bond, and that their ability to work together like that. It's never been seen before in the country. And like I mentioned earlier, it's not just happening in Nigeria. They're protesting. We saw the protest here in the UK. They're going to go out again. We saw the protest. The US, the various states are having one protest or another. Across over in Europe, they're protesting in front of all the Nigerian embassies. So people are coming out. They're not kidding about this.
There's one happening here on Saturday in London.
Yeah, on the 17th. There's another one as well. Yeah. So, you know, so it's not a one-hit wonder. So I think that ultimately we're going to get to the goal. Me personally, I will demand that the government takes away those rifles from those officers, because I think that they fire those rifles with, you know, it doesn't take much provocation. Somebody would just be firing bullets anyhow.
Yeah, and I want to come in here, and this will be, you know, final points from the both of you, because this is what the army said about the whole situation. So army spokesman Sagel Musa said on his Facebook post, okay, so this is the Nigerian army. He says, the Nigerian army hereby warns all subversive elements and troublemakers to desist from such acts, as it remains highly committed to defend the country and her democracy at all costs. He went on to offer to support the civil authority in whatever capacity to maintain law and order and deal with any situation decisively. And from somebody watching what's happening, Priscilla, when you hear messages like this, you know, what does this mean to you?
The army is supposed to be protecting the people. The army is not supposed, you can't be saying you're loyal to the state, but you're not there to protect the people. It doesn't make sense. So, you know, when I read something to the effect that the chief of army staff said he was loyal to the president, I just thought, you know, I don't know, you know, what he's going to get the shock of his life if he decides to step out there. I have seen these guys. I've seen the video of them being waterboarded and they're on their knees refusing to move. I have seen, you know, they are largely peaceful. They have been peaceful. The only time that we're seeing issues and problems is because of the elements that are being paid to go and cause the problems. So if people have a right to protest, sovereignty belongs to the people after all. It doesn't belong to the man that was elected. The man who is elected into office is there to work for the interest of the people and for the people. So, you know, the gentleman who, so the army suggesting that they're going to come out, are you threatening the people? Is that what they're trying to say? Because if the people have been largely peaceful, you cannot now be advocating anything other than further protection. If you do that, you're suggesting that you're threatening them and you want to come and cause more violence. And that's not needed. And I think that they should go and, if they are not sure of what to do, take advice from others, but don't just get out there, because it will make the situation worse. We've seen women coming out. We've seen, you know, we saw women coming out in numbers to say our children needs to be protected. At some point, you're going to have the whole nation on the streets. And, the politicians, as usual, are comfortable. It's good to see that they're having meetings and the governors are having meetings within their states now and saying we're going to put a fund together that we're going to compensate those who have been killed by SARS officers in their various states and so on. It's not enough. They need to do more. The lives of Nigerians are precious, and that must be respected and protected. You can't just threaten them because they gave you a weapon and a position. It's not.
Let's hear Julius' take on that particular statement, Julius.
There should always be separation between the police and also the military. Rule number one: the military exists to protect a country from external attack mainly. Yeah. So, but you look into when there's immense chaos inside the country, which is far beyond the police, then you see, is it about time we gave them a backup, which is allowed. But when you look into just mere protest, you understand that Nigerian police haven't raised any alarm to say, oh, this is overwhelming, we need a hand. They haven't. And you see the police chief, Mr. Adam, also having the guts to release protesters, which I think is a brilliant thing to do. And also embracing the idea that in an African setting, protesters can protest about an issue peacefully, and there's no chaos, there's no tear gassing, and it all ends well. And the authorities that be acknowledge that there's an issue to be sorted. That's very important. And therefore, whenever you saw military having the appetite to intervene quickly, things never turn out the way they should be. We saw the corruption in Mali over the years to the level that protests were talking about, let the president resign. But what happened when the army intervened? There was a coup. So let the police do their work, whether you call them SARS, SWOT, or SWOT analysis, whatever. Let them do their job. And if they are overwhelmed, yes, military can just intervene, but to bring order, but not to be involved in politics. Africa, we don't want military leadership. We want civilian leadership because that is the essence of democracy.
Okay. This is a message from Dennis Otingo Oyangu. Priscilla had her pause on the issue. SWOT and SARS are just symptoms of systemic governance failure. Niger is ripe for revolution. Where is Sowore and change movement leaders? And
they're there. They're there. The people
there.
Come and hijack our program.
Well, Priscilla and Julius, thank you guys very much for coming on the Logic Box. It's been great as always having you guys on the show.
Always
it was great to catch up.
Thank you, guys.
It was good to see you, Julius.
Yes.
Yeah, nice to catch up, guys. Have a nice one.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you, guys. All being well. At some point we'll be able to meet. When things calm down a little bit more. But thank you very much, Priscilla, and also Julius. Thank you guys very much. And to you for staying tuned and watching. Guys, make sure you do share. Go on to our YouTube channel and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us across all social media platforms. Okay. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm done for another day. My name is Jones. Thank you for watching. Coronavirus is still very much out there. So whatever it is you do, make sure you protect yourself, protect your family, protect your friends, protect everyone. Protect me to protect you. Look after yourself, and we'll see you next week. Is goodbye from us.